Hail, hail, the Celts are here, and what the hell do we care now, guys? It's that time of the year, the season is done, it is in the history books, and the dust is just about settling. And here on the channel, we're going to be kicking off our latest summer series, where we're going to be dishing out report cards. We're going to be looking at the players, we're going to be looking at the manager, we're going to be looking at the transfer department, and everything else in between. And this week, to kick off the series with episode 1, we're going to be covering the most spoken about, the most divisive, the player that has the most polarising of opinions across the Celtic community, Arne Engels. The record summer signing that we brought in as a Belgium youth international from the Bundesliga really had a season to remember in more ways than one, depending on who you talk to. Maybe a season to forget in some ways as well, as unlike ever before in Arne Engels' career, he has been under the spotlight, he has been under scrutiny for every kick, every pass, every tackle, every appearance that he's made. And as we get to the end of season 1, Celtic fans still have no idea what to think of it. In the video today, we'll be going through what we've seen, strengths, weaknesses, and areas to improve as we come into the next season. Of course, at any point in the video, if you do laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this, as we look to be doing the report card series every Thursday for you guys. Again, same upload time, somewhere between 5 and 6. Get into the comment section in this one and let me know what you think about everyone that we feature in the series. Of course, in today's video, it's Arne Engels. What did you see from them? What were the strengths? What were the weaknesses? And where do you think he needs to improve coming into next season? The comment section is always on fire, and I'm sure this series is not going to disappoint. But yeah, let's just get stuck straight into this one. Because ever since Arne Engels made that record-breaking transfer from Augsburg to Celtic for 11, 13 million pounds or euros or whatever it was, seemingly to replace Matt O'Reilly, he has just been the topic of conversation for Celtic fans all season long. He is a replacement for O'Reilly. He is not a replacement for O'Reilly. He's not as good as O'Reilly now, but he might be better in the future. He is a Celtic player. He's not a Celtic player. He should be playing as number 6. He should be playing as attacking mid. He shouldn't be playing in the squad at all. I think I've heard just about everything. And there's a kind of reason for that, by the way, because Arne Engels, like, when he's first come into the squad, and we'll look at some heat maps and whatever in a moment, was very much kind of thrusted into the Matt O'Reilly role, where he was asked to support the strikers, use his physical presence higher up the pitch, and then we were looking for him to do the O'Reilly stuff in terms of shooting from distance, unlocking defences, having that killer pass. And really, although O'Reilly wasn't a speed merchant, O'Reilly covered all blades of the grass, went everywhere, done everything the team needed to, would get in next to McGregor to let Hatate off the leash a little bit more, and sometimes if Hatate was going to come in deeper, go deep to get the ball or tuck in tight with McGregor, O'Reilly would get the license to join the attack and be that kind of other side of the pendulum, kind of swinging around there in the midfield. And I think from what I've seen of Arne Engels, predominantly in this type of situation on the right of a midfield three, he's shown already at a really young age that physically, height, strength, running power, he's got all the main kind of attributes ticked for a guy of his age to show that if he is to develop his technical ability, his in-game IQ, all this other kind of intangible stuff, that he could be a very effective player very quickly. I actually think along the lines of the way he's progressing, he's a player you could very easily see in a different setup maybe flourish a little bit better, because the system that we are using in the midfield here, we are really asking, except for McGregor, the other two midfielders or all the midfield to go box to box, to go line to line, wherever the ball is, and try and work within the framework that we always look to try and build an attack with the fullbacks, the wingers, the rotating midfielder, the wild card inverted fullback, and Greg Taylor. That'll obviously change a little bit next year, but we're asking these guys to pop out into areas and be playmakers on their side of the pitch, quite an individual kind of approach thing. And because of this, our midfielders are constantly isolated from one another, and I think Arne Engels, and we'll get into this more in the report card, but for a lot of midfielders of his kind of stature, of his kind of profile, are used to working in a midfield department, where they run the game from the centre of the pitch, go box to box, line to line, take up different roles and responsibilities as the game evolves. Particularly Rio, we love pitching him out wide, we love pitching him up top as well, but we know he goes everywhere, but he's very often on one side of the pitch, Engels is on the other, and McGregor's in the middle, orchestrating play. We control possession, we move the ball from left to right, change the point of attack, all that stuff, as you know. And the main attributes he's been able to show in, this type of situation here is, he is good in close quarters. He's good with, 1-2 touch passing, possession-based stuff in and around these dangerous areas here. He knows where the right pass is to maybe unlock the overload in fullback or send the winger for a run. He's also got a good range of passing as well. If he is starting from deeper, and maybe the opposition is came on to us, have actually tried to attack, if we're talking domestically or in Europe, it might be something we're a bit more familiar with. And he's got that eye and he's got that range of passing to really scrape a ball right down the pitch, right up the channel for someone to break onto. And we've seen this to really good effect in the bigger matches, the more important matches where opposition players do attack us. He can be the unlock of the counter-attack. When we get Hatate on the ball, his long-range passing can be effective, it can be good, but the can is the predominant word here. Hatate wants to travel with the ball and then make shorter range intricate passes on the counter-attack, playing it, when the defender gets off balance or play it down a blind spot, that sort of thing. Whereas Engels is happy to break from the crowd, get his chin up and really chip a ball over the top, a big switch of play down the line. He wants to have space to play in, he wants to have a team in and around him. Now, I've not seen anything from Arne Engels that makes me think that he can be this number 6 type player that a lot of people think he's supposed to be or he will eventually become. I'm sure he can do a more defensive job in the right kind of structure, maybe for us, maybe for another team in the future. But this isn't a guy that I want shielding our defence. He's not showing us anything to suggest that he is a defensive-minded midfielder. He is much more of a modern 8, is probably the best way of putting it. And I know some of you hate that terminology, but it is a midfielder that does everything that they're required to without having, in Engels' case, a standout strength necessarily. Some of these guys that you'll see in the Premier League and in the top teams in European football that do this job, you can see quite easily that, they're a defensive hard man or they're a bit of an attacking maverick type player, perhaps, whereas Engels is very much in that undetermined spot at the moment. And I think all the cries to play him in here is quite superficial on his height and his physique or whatever, and especially in comparison to McGregor. Equally, from what we've seen, and what I'm about to say I might contradict shortly, okay, so stay with me, right? But I think from what we've seen in the few games where we've tried to pitch him in the forward line here as the O'Reilly replacement, he's not that attack-minded where he's got that instinctual ability to receive the ball, maybe even back to goal, or when he is in and around the box with lots of options, lots of pressure and a crowd in front of him, that he consistently makes the right selection. He has, sent a few shots away over the bar that maybe should have been passes, and some of the passes he's played have went out for goal kicks and stuff like that, where he maybe should have took a shot or done something a little bit else. He does feel fish out of water for me when he's been pitched up as the attacking midfielder. And I think my number one criticism of Engels this year has been that he's went lost in matches, and that kind of ties into what I was just saying a moment ago, and then from this we'll move on to the next section of the video. But because the midfield does get pitched out against each other, and we are really tasking Hatate to, you're going to attack from the left. If we're going to give the ball down this side of the pitch, you're the boss, you're in charge, and you're going to get us into the final third somehow, and he has the freedom to go and do that. Engels has been tasked with the same thing. We have seen some moments in the season where this right-hand side looked really slick, looked really clean, because AJ, Engels and Kuhn are all really good 1-2 touch passers, good in tight spaces, do the right thing, and do try and progress the ball forward. But if one of these guys are off it, they've not always been playing as well. AJ and Kuhn have been out injured. Engels doesn't have the guile, the flair, the drive, it feels like, on the ball to carry an attacking department by himself. And because that can be the case sometimes, there's been plenty of matches for me, whether he has been asked in this attack spot here or in a more defensive area, that he's just went missing in games. And it's just that, it's not even that he's went hiding or anything like that, but he's just not got on the ball enough. His teammates haven't put him on the ball enough. And we can go through matches feeling like it's 10 men because Engels isn't doing anything particularly. He's not taking up dangerous positions and even occupying defenders. He's just kind of floating into this spot here. The ball doesn't come to him. It goes over the other side. He'll retreat back here. Oh, we've lost the ball. Everyone back and recover. And he's not that quick at recovery, so he maybe doesn't quite get there. And, a game can pass him by. And I think that's one of the main things I've seen from him, is he's a guy that, if he's not deployed properly or not got the right support around him, can be a bit of a non-entity, sadly. Now, when we look at the tail of the tape, one of the clear things that is going to stand out for Arne Engels in terms of a strength is his set-piece distribution. He scored 10 goals this year, he's got 9 assists. There might have been another shot that turned into an OG or something that's not his, but not a bad return from midfield in the league, in the Champions League, across 34 starts and 10 appearances off the bench. if you ask me. But I think from the eye test, I think we all know that he's never really grabbed too many games by the scruff of the neck. There has been some quite good performances, which we'll come to highlight in a second. But I think it's very clear against all the matches that he's played that he does have really good technique. He's got really good delivery of the ball. We're just chatting about what that can mean from open play. But for us, he's been a very regular and dependable set-piece taker for good deliveries. We've not really got defenders that crash in 5, 6, 7 goals a season. So he is kind of aiming really high-quality crosses at nobody for the most part, to be honest with you. But that range of passing has seen itself show in the games where the opposition do give up more of the pitch to transition, where we can, slice some balls down the channel and play in, the likes of Dyson, Kuhn, Kyogo, Ida, whoever it might have been. And when we compare him to other Celtic players this year in this season in the league, in the Champions League, he was our most fouled player, which is, it's not a great thing, right, to be fouled. It's not like goals and, balls into the box and that sort of thing, but it does show that you're good in possession, and buying fouls is an important element of football, especially in some of the games where we have less possession and it's more of like an important match for us. So the most fouled player in the team I thought was quite interesting. And when it comes to defensive statistics, I think you'll see quite clearly what it is we're talking about here in terms of him not being like a 6, despite him positionally being put in that position on a few different occasions. He's only got 29 effective clearances this season, which, effective clearances is getting the ball out of danger, and it's not going to go out for, the opposition to collect the ball and come straight back at you. Maybe it goes for a throw-in the other half, or maybe our team get on the end of it. The clearance is actually a bit of an escape ball, as it were. He's only registered 29 of them across the season, which is only a little bit more than Ralston's, only a little bit more than Ida, who comes back for set pieces and all the rest of it. It's not even that far ahead of guys like Kuhn and Maeda. He's only won 17 tackles this year, which, even compared to Paulo Bernardo, who's barely featured by comparison, you can clearly see that that's just not his forte. Blocked crosses, but he does break the top 5, and for out-and-out blocks, him alongside Kuhn and Hatate and Ida not too far behind. He's the top blocker in the team so far. Possession lost, he's also top, and a big part of the reason for that is the amount of set pieces he takes. In terms of possession won, it kind of pales in comparison, only 100 times here. Across the season, he's won 102 duels, and I think this is part of the crystallisation on what I think he needs to do better next year. There's 10-20 duels left on the table this season that he should have been a bit harsher in, a bit harder in, actually come out successful, and we might have seen a bit of a greater impact across some matches. He's lost 103 duels, so his duels kind of cancelled themselves out, sadly. 9 interceptions, which for a midfielder that's played as much as him and in the sort of position he's in is pretty pathetic, if you don't mind me being frank about it. Paulo Bernardo's got 7 interceptions by comparison. Ralston has 10. Fullbacks, you might have an argument to say they're involved in that kind of thing a bit more, but 9 interceptions across, the last 40 matches, Champions League and League and all the rest of it, for a guy that's meant to be doing everything in midfield is just not enough. Hatate is only one ahead of him, but Hatate has some other statistics that kind of balance that out in his favour. The contest one is a very interesting statistic because this is essentially like a dribble. This is like going by a guy, taking him out the equation, progressing, breaking the lines, that kind of move, Nicholas Kuhn is by far head and shoulders the top performer in the squad with 62 contests won this season. Dyson Maeda and Rio Hatate and Callum McGregor quite closely behind, with Yang, as we can see, that's a very main part of his game, is taking a guy on. But Arne Engels is right in amongst it with those guys. Now, granted, from there on in the list, it does kind of drop off the sort of players you would expect to be capturing that statistic, but that is a part of his game that he, needs to develop. We've seen glimpses of it, that he can travel with the ball, he can break through the lines. But for the amount of minutes, the amount of appearances he's got, he's on 16, Hatate's got 26. You would like to think he'd get a bit closer to, in between McGregor and Hatate, they're 23 to 26. He's just missing a little bit more. Big chances created, he's in the top 5 for us as well. But considering he takes corners and free kicks, that statistic maybe inflates his contribution more than it shows for even the likes of Hatate. Alistair Johnson, 11 big chance created from right back in terms of those overlapping runs, those crosses across the face of goal. And he tops the charts on 62 attempted assists. So this is the amount of balls he's played and then someone else has taken a shot on target. So he's done that 62 times this year. Again, with the set piece stuff, it does inflate it a bit. But as you can see, he's pretty much 50% ahead of Nicholas Kuhn, Rio Hatate, the guys that are right behind him. Penalty area entries, he's one of the top performers. He's the top performer. That's very much down to the set pieces this season. Big chances missed, he's had 2, so he maybe should have got 2 more goals this season than what he done. And then we get into the goalkeeper statistics. Now, if we go back to the tail of the tape for Arne Engels, it's easily forgotten. He made his debut off the bench against them in the derby. And then from there, he actually had a really great start to his Celtic career before, like, I don't want to say the wheels fell off, but maybe the, you know, that new toy kind of syndrome, that new girlfriend vibe, you know, that kind of honeymoon period. I got it eventually. it kind of wore off. Maybe post Dortmund was maybe the kind of wake up call moment. He also had some international breaks he went away for, and you know, he's had a real change of life, you know, over this transfer. It's really elevated his career and his status and everything like that. But in these early games against Hearts, Bratislava, he played absolutely amazing. Now, I know he scored the penalty and all the rest of it, but I just wanted to show the heat maps that we're getting here for some of these important games that he's played, because it's easily forgotten, some of this stuff in the fullness of time once you get to the end of the season. But his first full start at Celtic Park, we play against Hearts, we beat them 2-0, he scores one of the penalties, and look at his heat map. I'm very much reminded when I look at some of these games early on in the season of Joe Hart's comments from when Brendan came in post-Ange. At the first 6 months he didn't really change much and then started to implement things. It felt like because it was quite slapdash last minute, Arne Engels did come straight in to the O'Reilly role, and as we can see in this game here, he actually played a fantastic match, one of his best matches of the season arguably, with a high score rating, with a lot of successful actions. And look at that heat map, he's not just appearing on that right hand side there, but he's actually a lot more present in the centre, which in and around this area here across the edge of the box, and even getting towards the left hand side of it, is an area that we've seen less and less impact from him as the seasons went on. It's been much more stick to your side, stick to your job, know your zones, know your roles, and these are the players that you link up with. Whereas initially, when it's like, this is kind of what O'Reilly was doing, just go on, you'll be fine, big man. He has that little bit more of, oh, can I play over here? Can I get on the ball in this kind of area a bit more? Am I allowed to drive through the middle of the pitch in this kind of way? And not only against Hearts, but as we'll see, against Bratislava. Again, if Bratislava are very much levels below us when it comes to Champions League stakes and all the rest of it. Where would they have finished in our division? 3rd, maybe 4th, something like that. So yeah, not the best opposition to kind of weigh it up against, but high stakes game under the floodlights and all the rest of it. And you know, these games have been banana skin results for us in the past, where you blink and you drop points and it's a catastrophe. So don't take anything away from the result in that regard. But again, it's very similar heat map to the game before. One of the biggest tests for him, but came earlier this season in the Aberdeen match, the game of 2 halves, as it were. And I do think the first half, like, we absolutely blew them away. And he did stay on the pitch until it went to 2 each. They did have, obviously, a goal cancelled or whatever. He was subbed off in the 77th minute. And if we look at his heat map again, we're seeing a lot more penetration actually into the box. He's starting to own that side of the pitch a bit more. There is still some penetration through the middle, but as you can see, he's actually getting inside the 18-yard box a lot more. And I think in that match, I remember thinking, like, wow, this guy could really hit some big heights, because he had just landed, go straight into the team in the deep end, and he was playing some really important games and coming out with pass marks. I know not everyone was sold on him right away. In the chat, like I mentioned earlier in the video back then, was he's no O'Reilly, he's not as good as O'Reilly, and he's not that type of guy. But he was hitting the ground running and he was doing very, very well. One of the highlights of the season that we had, of course, was away to Atalanta. And this is maybe one of the games that gives people a little bit of that false impression of he could be a deep line player. He could be a number 6, as it were. This is his heat map. Didn't get on the ball very, very much. If we look at the Sofa score statistics, we can see he's won a nice amount of duels, of course, but there's only 15 out of 19 passes there, very little in terms of actual touches on the ball, and it was a lot more about positional awareness, about keeping tight, blocking off the spaces, and getting back into our box more than anything. As you can see here on the heat map where the arrow's showing, that's the direction we are shooting in. He's actually in our box way more than in their box. But the number one thing I want to highlight about that is he wasn't by himself. He was part of a midfield engine room, part of a department that was like tasked with a job. He was very close to McGregor in this game. Hatate was very close to the two of them in this match, but had the license to go and press and go and jump the lines, break the lines as the game went on. And I think he felt a bit safer in that match because he had people around him, and it wasn't just you're out on that side of the pitch, the ball comes to you, make something happen. But then the week after is one of the games that is really stuck in my memory with Arne Engels, and we're actually going to see this show itself a few different times. The week after we had the Atalanta game, we played Dundee at home, we beat them 2-0, Engels gets a penalty, plays a very good match and all the rest of it. Because as you guys will remember, in the first half of this game, it felt like the whole team was saying, have the ball, Palma. This is your chance to show you can take a man on the dribble and actually contribute something, and he went absolutely nowhere. But Engels was doing a really good job of pitching us up on that side of the pitch, playing Palma in whenever it was practical, whenever it had to be done. But him coming in from that left-hand side onto his right foot, playing with a guy like McKeown, very similar to Hatate, that wants to play in and around him. And when you're playing with a right foot on the left-hand side, your passing lanes and your passing lanes, your vision for balls is totally different to being right-footed on the right-hand side of the pitch. And I thought, oh, this could be the next evolution of our midfield, where we get Engels on the left-hand side. Jump ahead to the Leipzig match, which I think, again, most Celtic fans would agree Arne Engels played one of his best games, and this one was very good. Feeding Nicholas Kuhn and really, opening the door in transition. Leipzig were coming at us, and Engels was one of the most effective players at turning them back on themselves and getting them facing their own goal. But one of the more interesting things about the heat map is he did find himself centrally a lot more. This far right-hand side for me really limits and really blinkers his range, his opportunity to do what it is he's supposed to do in the team. And the way Leipzig play, and because he's got to stick to different men in rotations, he just found himself with some more central opportunities in this game, and I think that shows in terms of how important he was in the game. We fast forward to the Christmas period and we're looking at Boxing Day, where he plays in a midfield alongside Bernardo, McGregor, and obviously himself. This was a very important game, and because it's Bernardo and McGregor, and we know that Bernardo is not going to be breaking into the box, he's not that attack-minded player. Actually, the midfield three that played the cup final, and I thought it lacked a lot of penetration. But in this game, we didn't have that same issue. We actually ran out quite convincing winners. What was the score? 4-0. Again, as you can see from the heat map, Engels is still predominant on that right-hand side. He's actually got into the box a lot more often, but he's still been very effective in being on the ball very centrally, but he's just got more passing options available to him. The front three in this one was Dyson cutting in from the left, Yang on the right, with Big Ida up front, and it just feels that on this far right mid kind of position thing really doesn't suit him. We jump ahead to the game after against St Johnstone, and again, I've prepped this out for the video, right, but I've not prepped it out so forensically, where I'm now noticing in this game, another match he played very, very well. Bernardo is again the deep line defensive six, the guy that wins the tackles and has that nose for danger that Callum McGregor doesn't really have. Maybe that gives him a bit more freedom, a bit more confidence. St Johnstone, of course, a bit of a lower level opponent by comparison to some of the other teams we're chatting about. But again, he comes over to the left hand side a bit to play with Hatate, a lot more focused on the right, but he's getting into the box a lot more often than what we've seen in some of these other matches where he's played alongside McGregor and whatnot as well. And then this was all in that kind of festive period kind of run-in. We get to the 5th of January and we're playing St Mirren at home. And again, he plays on the left-hand side of a midfield with Luke McKeown, and he dominates the game, dominates the ball. One of his best performances in the hoops for me. And again, that left-hand side of the pitch was just all Arne Engels, absolutely everything. Lots of penetration into the box as well. Also appears on the other side of the pitch. I thought he played very, very well with McKeown, and with Hatate being injured, I'm still dumbfounded that this wasn't the midfield that we played in the cup final. But anyway, that's a story for another day. We get another game against Dundee at home where he's played exceptionally well. This was a bit of a formality. It was a good game for everyone, wasn't it? But he came in with a bunch of assists. Again, very dominant on this right-hand side of the pitch. But look, he's not just appearing on that. He wants to play with other midfielders. He wants to play with other players and cause questions for the opposition where they are taking players into areas of the pitch they don't want to go, and then he's killing space that they're leaving. And the biggest games of the season we had this year, of course, was Bayern Munich home and away. And at home, he put in a pretty good shift, it must be said. More as that kind of deep line midfielder, and again against Bayern Munich, I think we've seen that range of passing really open us up and really give Bayern Munich a big problem in counter-attack. When we were sending Kuhn, Ida, Maeda, like 1-on-1, 1v2 with Eric Dyer and Upamecano or whatever, it was good delivery, it was good service they were getting, not just from Engels but from other players, but he was a big part of that, and he's did that home and away. Now maybe away it wasn't quite as effective, he's not been on the ball as often because we're away in the Allianz Arena and it's a bit different, but again, in that kind of pocket, kind of right-hand side, still getting into the middle of the pitch to distribute the ball. And I think it's quite clear to see if we are playing teams that are going to be giving us areas of the pitch to exploit and run into, then playing in this kind of deeper pocket here, he's not bad at. He's quite okay at. But I think it's quite clear that he wants to be in a midfield. He wants to be part of the midfield engine room, the department that's going to be the heartbeat of the team and drive the side on. And we just don't really play that way, you know. If he can be on this side of the pitch, especially if McGregor's not in, and I think a part of McGregor not being in is that with McGregor being like the coach on the pitch, or as I've called him in a couple of videos recently, the teacher's pet, he's calling the shots, he's running the plays, he's the boss on the pitch, the captain, of course, and everything else, right? And if he's not there, there's a wee bit of the substitute teacher vibe where like you still get on with whatever you're meant to get on with, but let's do it our way, or let's cut the corner, let's have the break a little bit longer, however you want to think of it as. And I think, you know, if we're not going to play him as part of like a midfield department here, and we're really asking him to own an area of the pitch, we need him on the left-hand side, because that just opens up his vision, opens up his passing lanes that he can get into. The problem is Hatate kind of owns this side of the pitch, and that is where he is most effective. And yeah, I just don't see that changing. So that might be something to watch out for in general for the transfer window and everything else that goes around it. So we've looked at what we've seen from Arne Engels in terms of play style. We've looked at some statistics for strengths and weaknesses, things that he really does offer the team. And then we've tried to wind back the clock and actually look at the tail of the tape, how he's performed in some important matches, and when he's performed well, what's it looked like, what's it felt like, you know. Like Nicholas Kuhn, when he plays well, he's taking on guys, he's scoring worldies, he's setting up stuff. Daizen Maeda, when he plays well, we all know what that looks like, etc, etc. But Arne Engels, knowing what he looks like when he plays well, like I said earlier in the video, no one can really decide upon that, you know. And I think ultimately when I'm looking at the report card for Arne right now, thinking, how do you get better for this time next year? Yes, we would like to see him do better defensively, win more duels, win more tackles, more interceptions, have that nose for danger, develop that in his game a little bit more. But I think the number one thing he has to improve on is finding a way to always be involved in matches. And if he is like pitched out into like the right hand side of the pitch and the game doesn't really come to him, having that, you know, I don't know if it's professionalism or maturity, however you want to think of it as, but finding that way of getting back into the game is probably the number one thing that will make the biggest difference to his career at Celtic. Is, yeah, just making sure that if the game's not coming to you, get involved in the game in some other way. And maybe there's a bit of adaptation to be done with the midfield in terms of like, if this is happening, Calmac, I'm going to tell you so to move over this way and I'll come into this pocket, and then you can just, you know, whatever. Figure something else out where those games where the game doesn't come to him, can we get him involved? Can he get himself involved in the game more often? Because the defensive stuff we've already just said there is something he could improve on, of course. In terms of anything he's lacking from an attacking point of view, that is just sharpening the sword. That is reps, that is minutes, that is experience. And, you know, playing for Augsburg, Belgium under 21s, and Bruges under 21s and whatever, there's not that same level of do or die on attacking output, you know. And he's been in situations, looking at the Belgium teams he's been in, looking at the Augsburg team, where I know he was not the main playmaker. They don't even have that many playmakers. It's about hard work, grit and effort and taking opportunities. He's not had that much chance in his career to really hone that attack kind of side of his game. And he's had a lot of chances to do that this year, and I think, no mistake about it, he's a better player now than what he was when we signed him. Of that I've got no doubt. But this kind of thing, the elephant in the room we're kind of dancing around, is like, are we going to get the most out of him? And I think if we keep this same system, I'm going to find it really hard to think that we will, to be quite honest with you, without him taking some extra initiative, Matt O'Reilly style. And, you know, no matter what's going on in the game, you get yourself involved, you make yourself, your presence felt, you decide on your input in the match. You don't let the match decide your input in it, if that makes sense. Overall, I think it's really hard to give Arne Engels any fail marks for this season. I don't think he's overly let us down in any particular game. I might be forgetting something, and if I am, feel free to correct me in the comments section, but I don't think he's ever really let us down. There has been some games where he's just been like a non-entity or whatever, but 10 goals, 9 assists, became a full international, 10 Champions League games, 1,000% more semi-final and cup final experiences in his life this season than ever before. And yeah, like I can only give the guy pass marks, I think, for this season. Now, there's no ribbons and A pluses or anything like that going around it, but it is firmly pass marks. Season 1, Arne, you've come in, you've adapted well in some places, Still more adaptation to be done in other areas, but still some development to do, and maybe can we help him out with how we construct the midfield and how we're going to build that going into the third season of Brendan 2.0 as we look to go and have one step further. We want to do even better in the Champions League this season than we did last year, and I guess all we can do at this point is cross our fingers and toes, hope he has a great summer holiday, he comes back rejuvenated and just as determined as he was when he signed for us, and you know, he gets that bit between the teeth where he wants to shut up everyone, and I mean everyone, because even if you're pro Arne Engels, everyone's still talking about him. Everyone's still like, oh, I don't really get him, or he should do this, or he should do that, or we shouldn't have him. And I think he'll just want all of that to go away. He'll just want the Celtic fans to start singing his name. He'll want to be a match winner. He'll want to play in the biggest matches. And yeah, like I say, ultimately, it's kind of hard to give him fail marks for this season. He has to be a pass for me. For a record signing, he has been a bit underwhelming. I can go along with that as well, because you just would have expected him to be closer to the finished article, given the background, the experience that he's had when we've brought him in, as well as the transfer fee associated with it. But that's not the way life, that's not the way football works, sadly. Sometimes it can, but not always. And we just need to give the boy time to breathe and develop over this summer and into next season. And I think by the time we get to, like, I don't know, February, March in the next campaign is when we'll have like a complete picture, a complete idea of what Arne Engels is and what he can become. I hope you've enjoyed this one, guys. On screen are now some other stuff that I've made that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. If you haven't done so already, please do hit the subscribe button for more content like this. If you did enjoy the video, hit the like button, of course. And don't forget to get into the comment section and tell me about everything I got wrong. Hail, hail, and I'll catch you on the next one, guys. Mon the hoops.